If I was to go back in time and speak to myself, this is exactly what I would say to find unconditional happiness. I would say that there's two questions to ask. The first question is, what is the awareness aspect of my experience? Am I essentially a finite, limited self in a body, in a mind? Or am I something that is unlimited to the body and the mind? Am I, whatever I am made of, is it found in the body, in the mind, or is it something that creates the body and the mind? That's the first question. The second question, then, after we understand that, we'll always come to the conclusion that I am the aware aspect of my experience. That's what I am. The aware aspect of my experience is what I am. And I am not the body, I am not the mind, so I'm not something that can be contained. You see, so I'm not an object. But then what happens is we realize that I am therefore either in the body as awareness, or I am something created by the body. So we then believe, well, even though I know I'm awareness, I don't know how I can be contained. I don't know how I can be outside the body, you see? That's the next question that will come up usually. Is this disbelief in being infinite, essentially. Infinite means to be not limited. It doesn't mean that we are an infinite, massive, huge thing. It means that we are zero objective. It means that we have zero objective qualities. It also means that we have no form, no physical form. And that is what we find out awareness is. Now, prior to that, the next thing is to really inquire into, am I limited? So we need to understand, am I at all limited? And that means that if we cannot find a limit, and a limit means that we cannot be contained, that we're not maintained by anything, and that we are not sustained by anything. Whatever we are would be completely autonomous and free. Right? In the same way that the phone is free from whatever image takes place in it, right? We would be free from the entirety of experience. So once we investigate that, this isn't something we just do in the next hour. It's something that we will probably spend a bit of time doing. I don't know how long it might take. It completely depends on who you are, what you've seen, what you've not seen, and what your current understanding is. The next question I would recommend asking, fundamental question, is, am I real, and do I exist? Now, this is a pinnacle question that is based on the premise that we understand the definition of reality and that we understand the definition of existence and truth. The premise of the question, just to quickly introduce you if you're not sure about what I'm referring to, that which exists is something that stands alone against all experience. It's fundamental. So whatever it is, the fact that there is existence. That's what existence is, okay? We don't need to know what it is. We just need to know that there is, right? You're hearing these words, you're having an experience, something exists. Well, the something that exists, even if it's appearing as an illusion, is what exists. It is existence. It cannot be denied. So if something exists, therefore that thing will be real. You cannot have something that exists that is not fundamentally real. So whatever the existence is, whatever the source of it is, I'm not saying that the planet Earth is the source of existence. It's obviously not. Whatever it's made of, or whatever's creating or emanating the world is what exists. Whatever's giving it existence is real. And that would be what exists, and that would be what reality is. That would make it true. True means it's not just true for me, it's true standalone, no matter who or what is perceiving it. So depending on... so usually a truth is only true relative to who is perceiving it, right? This microphone is true for me, but it's not true for you. You have no experience of the microphone, no direct experience of it. I do, but that doesn't make it absolutely true. But truth is what is absolutely undeniable from all points of view and is inherent in all experience. That would be truth. And if there is something true, well, it would be something that also exists and something that is also real. And that would be the summary of reality. So based on that understanding, we then ask the question, am I real? That is the most simple, direct, yet profound question that we can ask, so long as we're ready to accept the answer. And we do have to accept the answer, because the answer is radical. The answer is always a yes. We know that we are real, but most people struggle to accept the implications of that. The implications of being real, as we've just described, means that we are fundamentally, ultimately real. If we're fundamentally, ultimately real, we exist, we are true. Therefore, whatever we are, which we've already come to this point right now, is awareness. We can then see, holy crap, awareness is all that is in all experience. There cannot be an experience outside of awareness. That would defy the actual definition of what experience is. Experience is being aware of, period, right? We can have the experience of nothing, and that would still be an experience. It would be the experience of nothing. So experience is just being aware of, right? And there doesn't have to be of something. So so awareness is also a unique experience. It's not an experience that we would commonly call an experience, because it's got no objective quality. But the experience of awareness is transcendent of human experience. And we see that this transcendent awareness is absolutely real. It exists, and it is true. It's not just true for me, it's true for anyone who could comprehend the question. So the implications of this question, this is, in my experience, it was the most profound question I ever asked myself, because it was the most simple, the most direct, and it created the biggest, most empowering conviction in my understanding. So this is why I would say this is the final inquiry, the most primary inquiry for the understanding that we are infinite, because it's just undeniable. We can't be partially infinite or partially finite. We are either finite, and if we're finite, we do not fundamentally exist. The body does not fundamentally exist. It comes and goes. Anything that comes and goes does not fundamentally exist. It would borrow its existence from something else. So just like the wave borrows its existence from the ocean borrows its existence from the water, so too does the body borrow its existence from what? You see, we can't say it borrows its existence from the earth, because the earth, well, what does that borrow its existence from? You see, we'd keep going back and back and back. We then realize, well, everything borrows its existence from the fact of existence itself, from reality. And then we find out reality is pure, infinite being, pure consciousness, and that's what we are. So now that we understand this, now you don't necessarily have to take that question and that path to get to the same understanding. But if you're watching this right now, it's probably because you haven't yet fully found that inner conviction in that understanding, which therefore I would strongly recommend contemplating the implications of that question as often as you can. That would be the practice if you're on that level. Now, we have realized that we are infinite. We know that we are infinite. I would suggest using that question to really provoke and accept your infinite nature, because it's a transcendent identity. It's an identity that is being dissolved, and its fear can arise when that happens. That's why it's not so easy, but it is simple. And to the extent of our, let's just say, success on that approach is to the level of interest we have. It's directly correlated to the level of interest we have and to the level of courage we have to face that. And I would also argue then to the level of guidance that we have along that process too. So the next thing that I would share is the integration process of this. Now, everything so far, all we've asked is 2 or 3 questions. 2 of them are pretty similar, and what we've been doing is contemplating them over the months now, or potentially years. Hopefully it's not years, but ideally we contemplate it for as long as we need. And now we're learning to integrate. So we don't necessarily just ask these questions and just contemplate these questions and then do what I'm about to say. We do it all in one process. We don't necessarily have to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can do a mixture of 2 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, you see. But the main thing is that we have a structure and an idea of the path of what we're doing. This is the pathless path. We haven't started anything yet. We're still trying to grasp understanding. And then once the path is about to start, the path disappears, which is getting to the point where we realize we're infinite. So now there's no more path to even start. That's why we call it the startless path. So now you're at a stage right now where you know that you are infinite, but you don't quite yet feel that way. You do not feel infinite. You still feel limited. Whatever your intuition is saying, it says limitation. It doesn't say I feel unlimited. Now, we don't want to look for an infinite feeling. This isn't something that is like some type of objective experience that we're supposed to feel. And this is what I wish I was told, because I thought I was looking for some infinite feeling, like, well, yeah, I don't feel like I'm the size of the universe, right? It's not necessarily a feeling, it's a lack of a feeling of limitation. So we want to go through these 3 steps: thought, feeling, and perception. Thought, usually by now, if you took these steps, will usually be pretty fine, right? Thought will be pretty convicted. Thought in these 3 steps, in this current 3-step process, thought, feeling, and perception, is addressing the conviction in being what you are and being infinite. Now, the conviction can be absolute, but you can still then have areas that will pull you back into ignorance. There can be areas that trigger the trauma of separation. Now, the trauma of separation is the feeling and perceptual sense that you have believed for all your life that you are inside the body looking at an external world. This will create triggers, so to speak. I don't necessarily enjoy the word triggers, but essentially it is a trigger. You perceive a separate object, and the prompt from perceiving the separate object is, I am at a distance from the object is separate from me, therefore I am separate, and I am in a separate infinite universe, and therefore everybody else is separate. This is separation. Now notice that I said separation, I didn't say duality. Duality is what we can experience, and that's perfectly legitimate. Just like it's legitimate to experience time and space, they're tools to experience. They're not something that are fundamentally real, but they are, however, useful tools in order to have an experience. I would argue so is duality. So duality does not imply separation. So what we're doing now is getting used to duality again, right? Coming back to the marketplace without duality making us believe that we are fundamentally separate. Duality and separation are not the same thing. So we want to be able to perceive duality without falling into the trigger or the trauma of separation. The trauma of separation makes us feel like we are located. So the first thing is so thought, which I just described, then we go to feeling. Do I feel like I'm in the body? Do I feel like I am inside the head? Do I feel like I am my thoughts? Do I feel like I am in the chest? Do I feel like my sense of existence is somewhere inside a sensation? It's always going to be a sensation. All the body is a sensation, and what we do is we attach and localize our sense of self into one of the sensations that we feel, which is another energy. So then we go into sensation. That would be the field of sensation that we then explore, which is internal feelings, essentially, and where we feel located, if we feel infinite or if we feel finite. We want to look for a lack of limitation, not to feel an add-on of something, you see? The add-on will be the result of uncovering this, if there is any add-on at all, but we don't want to make that the priority, right? So the 3rd step then would be perception. To on a perceptual level, not get triggered by the trauma of separation, which is exactly what I just described in terms of, do I perceive myself to be inside the body, and do I perceive an external world? So perception, and do I hear sounds outside of myself, right? Well, the first step I took was sound, and if I could hear sounds they felt outside me. I felt like I was listening to an external sound. So what I would do, and what I learned from my teacher, was to essentially experience from the place experience actually takes place, and not from the place the object seems to take place, right? I do more of this in my community. This is where you can learn all of this stuff. So that would be the field of perception. The field of perception includes where we experience sounds, where we experience sights, where we experience taste, touch, and is there any other sense? Sights, smells, touch. What's the other one? And sounds. That's the one. Sounds. We already said that one, right? Sight, smells, touch, taste, and sounds. So we want to go through these perceptions. We don't necessarily need to go through all of them. I would recommend going through all of them. You don't need to, right? We think of the analogy of pulling the one leg of the table. There's 4 legs on the table. You only need to pull one leg for the others to follow. So it's not necessary to go through them all. I would recommend the easiest ones first. And the easiest ones first are going to be sensation and sound. And the trickiest one is going to be sight. Because the visual field is, I don't know, it just seems to be the more tricky one. So that would be the entire process. So if you were to go through this, I teach this in my community. This is what I do every single day with the members in my community. But I want to show you and introduce you to this so you can see, oh my gosh, so this is where I'm at. All I have to do is this, this, and this, right? It's so simple. And don't get lost in this, oh, there's no doer, there's nothing to be done. This is all nonsense. There's definitely something to be done. You either do it as a separate self or you do it as awareness, right? None of this non-doership. Ultimately, yes, there's no individual doer, but that is not helpful to the one who believes themselves to be an individual doer. Telling them they're not the doer is not going to do much, you see? Also telling them, and then unless you're talking to that person, it's not necessary to even tell them they're not the doer if they don't feel like they're the doer to begin with, right? Anyway, without going too far in that direction, whereas I understand the wisdom in saying there's no doer, that is true. I don't necessarily see it as the best teaching method. That's just my opinion. So just follow this process, and this process is going to just narrow like a laser on your path. I promise you that. So if you'd like more on this, my free community is in the description. If you'd like to check it out, click that link. I'd love to see you there. Thank you all for listening, and have a beautiful day. Take care, guys. Bye.